All right, so, we ask you guys to send in stuff that's got you thinking, maybe articles that raise an eyebrow, and, well, this one definitely takes the cake.
Yeah, gotta say, this one piqued my interest too.
Biden warns election might not be peaceful because of Trump. I mean, wow, that's not the thing you see every day.
Talk about a headline.
No kidding. And from what I gather, President Biden called this unprecedented press conference not about some big crisis or anything, but to talk about, well, a peaceful election. I mean, come on, it's not exactly your typical pre-election rally speech, right?
Right, and then that's what makes it so fascinating, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're totally right. This is a total cardball. You don't see a sitting president breaking from, like, decades of protocol to address something like this.
Yeah, and this isn't just some offhand comment either. This article, I don't know where they're getting this from, but they actually quote him directly.
Oh, really? Let me hear this.
Okay, so it says here, I don't know whether it'll be peaceful, and he's talking about the days and weeks after the election, which is, I mean, kind of terrifying when you think about it. Like, he seems confident it'll be free and fair, which, okay, that's what you want to hear, but that whole peaceful part, that's where things get a little dicey, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. He's laying it at Trump's feet, no question. He
Uh,
even brought up January 6th, which, I mean, talk about a gut punch. It's like he's saying, remember this. This is what's at stake here.
yeah, it's a pretty sobering thought, to say the least, right? Because it's not just about one person, it's about the whole system. And speaking of which, this article also brings up JD Vance, the Republican VP candidate.
Oh, yeah. What about him?
Well, get this. He straight up refused to say he'd accept the election results no matter what. Like, hello, 2020 called, they want their playbook back, right?
It's like a broken record, isn't it? But I mean, jokes aside, this is actually a pretty big deal because it's not just Trump anymore, right? It's like this refusal to commit to a peaceful transfer of power is filtering down the ranks, becoming, I don't know, almost normalized.
Yeah, and that's what's so scary because it makes you wonder what happens if things really do go south, especially with all the legal stuff hanging over Trump's head. I mean, you've got federal charges, state charges, all tied to election interference, and his whole campaign is basically riding on this election.
Yeah, and let's not forget the rhetoric he's using. I mean, he actually used the word bloodbath to describe what happens if he loses.
Yeah, I mean, come on, that's not exactly reassuring, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But honestly, this kind of inflammatory language, it's not exactly new in politics.
Hmm.
We've seen this kind of thing before, both here in the U.S. and in other countries. The difference now, I think, is the way social media can act like a megaphone, amplifying these messages and reaching a much wider and often more divided audience.
So where does that leave us? I mean, it's easy to get caught up in all the political drama, but what does this mean for the average person who's just trying to, like, vote and get on with their life?
Well, I think it's a reminder that a peaceful transition of power, it's not just some abstract ideal, it's the bedrock of a functioning democracy. And when you have this level of fear and uncertainty, it can really undermine people's trust in the system, discourage them from even participating in the process.
Man, that's kind of heavy. Okay, so, I mean, if there's one thing our listeners can take away from this whole thing, what would you say it is?
I think it's this: pay attention, be informed. And when you go to the polls this year, ask yourself, how important is a peaceful transition of power to me? Because ultimately, it's up to all of us to protect the integrity of our democracy.
That's a really good point. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. But like we always say, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep those cards and letters coming because we want to hear from you. What do you think about all this? Hit us up on our website, socials, whatever your preferred method of communication is. Until next time,
It's curious.
and stay engaged.